Hello there, welcome back to your channel. It's Richie here from Down After Dark, and I am joined by a very special guest. For those of you who don't know him, which I can imagine everybody who's watching my videos does, this is the Mountain, Steve himself from Mountain Miniatures. Very welcome on the channel, mate. How are you?
Thanks for having me on. I'm doing great. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good, mate, good. Don't know if I've been as busy as you this week, though. It's we were just having a quick chat off air before, and it seems like you've had quite a busy week, mate.
Always. I'm always painting. I literally paint every day, but I'm always painting and recording, so it's not a bad life.
No, it's definitely not, to be honest. A full life of Warhammer is pretty much the dream, right?
I get to live it. Thanks to all my viewers, I get to live it. Yeah.
I love it, mate. So I've got a few questions I want to ask you, which I'm probably just going to forget about as we just meander through a chat. But so as 100%. So as you are a massive household name in Warhammer and especially in fantasy, because you were playing the games even before Old World come out, what I think people might be interested in is what's your story in the hobby? Where did it start? What were your favorite games?
So I literally started with Warhammer Fantasy, but I was about to say unique past with it, but I guess it's probably not as unique as I think. So I remember being very young, somewhere between the age of 10 and 14. I can't remember exactly. And I had this neighbor who had a handful of models. He's my age, just a handful of models. But more importantly, he had the books from, I think it was, I'm almost positive it was 5th edition. So way back when you buy a 2-player box set, this pretty much predates the internet. So to look at all your models, you had to look through what we old guys called magazines. These pieces of paper that showed us all these images that you can now get on the internet. So no, but there's these old books from like 5th edition. So they had like a rule book and a separate book, which was like, I don't even know what to call it. Actually, you probably can identify it. I won't call it a hobby magazine, but it had an actual name. And it just showed you all the miniatures. And I remember just like borrowing those books and staring at them forever, like just constantly. I read every page, every blurb. And then as you get a little older, I started to buy miniatures, bought my first Bretonnia versus Lizardman box set. And I wasn't overly close with that neighbor, so we didn't play a lot. Also, he didn't have any miniatures, I didn't have any miniatures, but when I started buying miniatures, my buddies would be supportive, and I'll play a game with you. We do these mock games, but nobody I grew up with was even remotely interested. So it's kind of like my hobby and my hobby alone, just for me by myself. I actually remember the very first miniature I painted was the first miniature I put paint on was a Bretonnian knight, but I didn't have paints because miniatures were expensive, so I used my sister's nail polish.
Ah, amazing. I bet that looked amazing. No, so mine's the same. So the first models I ever got was a box of the regiment of just normal goblins. And I found one of those recently. So I was helping my parents clean out their old house and just looking through like my old stuff to see if I wanted to throw it away. Honestly, I need to fish it out and put a picture of it on YouTube. It's the worst painted thing I have ever seen. You know the Help Me Clarence, the Space Marines. If you can imagine, so much worse. Yeah, it's worse. It's terrible. Like I think I did like half of its face like bright neon pink for some reason. No idea why.
The first model I ever finished painting, which was not too long later, was actually the old, probably 4th edition technically, metal dwarf gyrocopter. If you remember that one, the sharp wings, the big skis.
I have one of them right here, actually.
I have one on my desk at work.
I actually have one within reaching distance. Ugh.
No, not that one.
Not this one.
Wait.
Is it not this one?
Wait. It's missing his wing. Yeah, it's that one. It's missing his wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's old, mate.
Grenades sitting in the wings. Perfectly aerodynamic, yeah. That's actually the first miniature I ever fully painted. But then after that, it was just like, you spend the next 10 years... Nope. You spend the next 20 years going in head of the hobby. The only time you get to play is at an event. And where I live in Canada, they're few and far between. Like the big city of Toronto, I'm sure everybody knows Toronto, it is like an hour and a half away from where I grew up. So it's like there's no big cities around me. So it's not that much gaming growing up. And then all of a sudden I accidentally get a job at Mini Wargaming. Like literally accidentally get a job at Mini Wargaming. And all of a sudden I'm playing nonstop constantly, several games a week. Just Warhammer Fantasy, gaming at least 2 games a day, 6 days a week, and turned into a early retirement job where now I don't work anymore, but I play games all day, every day. So I'm blessed.
I love it. So I do actually remember watching those early videos when you were at Mini Wargaming back. Yeah, how long ago was that? Was that like 10 years ago, 12 years ago?
A little over 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so I can remember watching those.
They were bad. I'm sorry.
They're better than the battle report I tried to film the other day, so I wouldn't worry about it. That's so bad. That's not even going live.
Well, the thing is, the thing that burns me the most and the most memorable for me is, I, like a lot of people, especially back then, thought they knew how to play the game. And it's when you upload it, you realize that you're doing everything wrong.
Yeah, like you get that at every level as well. Like, I only realised, like, literally a couple of weeks ago that I'd been playing the cover rule wrong in Old World for the entire year, and I've played like hundreds and hundreds of games, and basically I just assumed for some unknown reason I read it wrong, that if your opponent had slight cover, the entire unit shooting at them was -1. So basically, I've been playing for a whole year, having all of my units just shooting at -1 like all the time.
I do believe. How many editions have you played?
So I've played 6th, 7th, 8th, and End Times, because that was his own thing, right?
Yeah, fair. Yeah, no, I do believe for us, I'll call us veterans or older guys who've played multiple editions, it is harder. In fact, I especially the first 6 to 8 months, I would get a lot of emails with people saying, "Hey, you're doing something wrong," or "Hey, how do you handle this?" Or just tons. And I still get quite a few of them, but for the first 8 months, it was insane. And I found it was the thing that caused all of the confusion is just a previous edition biases. You read a rule, it is mostly the same, but your brain just processes. That's how it worked in 7th edition. That's how it worked in 8th edition. That was the problem that I think all of us veterans have to deal with. And I have a gaming group back or the store where I work at. They're all these 19, 20-year-old kids. They play a little bit of Warhammer Armies Project, but they pretty much only played this edition. And they don't have that problem. Which is...
if it's the first edition that you're jumping into, I suppose you can actually just read the rule book and just absorb then, don't you? But whereas because this is so similar to 6th, and I played a lot of 6th, it's you just weirdly just assume that it's going to play exactly the same, and it just doesn't. There's so many like little rules. Like it took me ages to get my head around terror as well, because you're so used to it being played in a different way. Same as fear. I know obviously fear was really different in 8th edition, but yeah, like fear in 6th edition was game breaking. Like if we had fear now in Old World like it was in 6th edition, no one would be able to beat Tomb Kings. No one would be able to beat Undead. It'd be insane.
6th edition was a phrase we used to say a lot in the studio. You're always one failed fear check away from losing the game.
Oh, and terror bombing. It was insane. Like it's quite funny. So I love 6th. Like I went back and did like loads of tournaments of 6th quite recently. I went to loads of events. Big up those, really fun. But it's a very, very difficult game to play because the power levels are just so wildly different. I think everybody looks back at 6th with like these rose like tinted glasses on how balanced it was, because it really wasn't, in my opinion.
Well, so I remember. I'm going to say this is probably 6 or 7 years ago. Luca has just recently got a job at Mini Wargaming. He's the guy I play Warhammer Fantasy with regularly. And we're playing lots of 8th edition. And we're talking about like old editions and various things. And I would say repeatedly, 6th edition was my favorite edition. It was the best edition. It was amazing. We should go back and play 6th edition one day. And then we did. I played one game and went, oh yeah, I hate this. I don't like this. There's a bunch of quality of life things that just got added in over the editions. Don't get me wrong. There is like the 6th edition army books are so good. I love them to death. But yeah, just not being able to reform once you're flanked in the side. Your armies are just typically smaller. Just a little more, a little less forgiving. But that's also part of this charm as well. Yeah, I'm happy to go back and play a little bit of 6th edition every now and then, but I will never again call it my favorite edition. The thing is, the reason why it became my favorite edition is because when I started, I'll air quote playing, because I wasn't really playing, I was a kid. I started in 5th edition and was very, very hero hammery, if you remember that at all. It's all a bunch of heroes. 6th edition had a big focus moving to blocks of infantry, and that was when it was like a real war game to me. I really loved the idea of 6th edition. I actually do prefer 7th edition over 6th, but the 6th edition army books. So I know, I get it, but look at it just there's a. Okay, I also played Hiles, so I don't know if there's a typical Hile, just a couple of characters on horses. They had multiple Ruby Rings of Ruin, if we'll give them the proper names. Yep, there you go. I remember. Okay, sorry. So a couple years after Luke and I played that 6th edition game, where I was like, "Oh, this is bad," went back and did it again, and on my channel, Mountain Miniatures, and recorded a 6th edition game, and I put it up, and everybody's like commenting how the rule you did this wrong, you did this wrong. I'm going through the rulebook, I'm like, no, like it's right. And then somebody, I can't remember the name of the person, somebody caught this like 3 months later. And it was really fresh in my mind. I just got a comment on that video a couple of days ago, and I just pulled the whole video down. We were playing 7th edition, and I thought we were playing 6th edition. So like, everything's labeled 6th edition, we're playing everything 7th edition.
Yes. Although I actually really liked 7th edition. It was basically like a polished 6th edition. Well, it was like 6.5 really. Like the dwarf book for 6.5, nuts. So powerful, really good. Just having the +1 to hit on Thunderers. I rate that.
I just love the I played Hiles mainly, right? And I could no longer pool all my dice together, so people didn't groan as much. That was enough for me. So back in 6th edition, you could pool all your dice together, and one wizard could use other wizards as a big mana battery to just power himself, and then 7th edition they took it away, rightfully so. But 7th edition I remember as a cavalry edition. It's all about minimum squads of cav just flanking everything and breaking everybody. Is that how you remember it? I guess you're a dwarf player. It's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of sit there and wait to get charged, right?
You're a dwarf. Come on.
It's the same in every edition.
Did you shoot enough of them before they got to you? Yes, you win. No, you lose.
Yeah. Well, this is the main thing. Obviously, we spoke about this on your channel last week, and it's, for me, all of the other editions, it's like, cool, you've got Hero Hammer, you've got the Fear Hammer, you've got Cavalry Hammer, you've got Monster Hammer and that stuff. But this generally, Old World now, is probably the edition I think that all the armies play a lot more like themselves. I think, especially like 8th edition, I didn't particularly like how dwarves played. They were just a really obnoxious play style. You just sit in a corner, you shoot. Yeah. If you can shoot your enemy and table them, you win. You're not going to grab any objectives. You're not going to grab the tower in the center. That's fine. You don't need it. You've tabled your opponent. Whereas now everything kind of plays, I think, like it should, which is really good. Do you feel that with your High Elves as well?
Well, okay, so as a guy who literally owns and plays every army in the edition, I like to think of myself as unbiased between army to army to army, but I do recognize I do have a bit of a bias with my High Elves for some reason. I guess they're still my main, if you want to call it that, even though I do play them the least. So I feel like the High Elves have lost a bit of their character, but at the same time, everybody, in my opinion, everybody, I'll use that broad term, but it's not everybody, obviously. A lot of people felt that their army did, because every army did get, if you played 8th edition, did get toned down. And rightfully so, the game's a better place for it. So the one army I identified with, I felt lost a bit of its character, but I also am the guy who, I'm not obsessed with Skaven players, I'm also the guy who said, well, the Skaven still feel like Skaven to me. I wasn't a Skaven player when they lost all their zany things, and a lot of Skaven players believe they lost their identity in this edition. I said, no, they didn't. I'm very happy to play them. It's only because they were my main army and I recognize this bias, I say Hiles lost their flavor or their identity, but that can't be factually true if I will defend the other 15 armies. So it's a pure emotional thing.
Yeah, I think every army going into this game did lose a little bit, but obviously if they're going to do multiple editions of this game, it just means that they've got more stuff to add in the future. So I don't think it's doom and gloom for all of these players. Yep. And especially there is also community-led stuff as well for like the Renegade factions that I know like Val and Rob are doing as well, which hopefully will maybe get adopted in the future and hopefully bring those Renegades up. So it's good. I think we can just keep kind of adding stuff, and hopefully GW will add stuff for the main armies as well going through.
Yeah, well, so I'm adapting that Renegade Legacy pack on my channel. I think 99% of the changes are like, it actually have been that way from day one. So nothing was crazy in that Legacy pack changes. But I'm also a firm believer, but it might be a little bit more faith and belief, that we're not done with what we call legacy factions with Games Workshop. There is still a future for them. It's not tomorrow. It's probably not next year. But we're definitely not done with the future of those armies, in my very firm belief.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think my personal opinion on it is I think that Games Workshop were just kind of doing the first edition of Old World as a bit of a test, see how well it sold, and then they're going to bring the legacy factions into main armies in second edition. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Old World is not like they're not making a crap ton of money off of Old World. They're not rolling in it because of Old World, but it's doing far better than they expected. So, yeah, no, I mean, like bringing everything back all at once. It was a monumental task as it is. I got no complaints with how the game returned in its current state whatsoever.
No, I'm just super happy it's back as well, right?
Yeah, exactly, for sure. I mean, I'm the main content producer for Warhammer Fantasy for Mini Wargaming, and I'm the one who argued that it's time that we end the Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report show. Because, like, okay, the audience is slowly dwindling. It's time to end it. And then we did. It was the right financial decision. You have to, it's running a business, right? And then, like, a year later, I'm like, nah, I miss it too much. We got to bring it back. And I had a year off, a year break, and I didn't stop playing Warhammer Fantasy. So it was never canceled for me.
But you do obviously play the other games, like you play Sigmar. Yep. I know I've watched some of your Heresy games as well. Obviously, you've just opened your Heresy channel as well. Yep. So we'll give that a little plug. So everybody go over and watch that if you like Heresy. What is your favourite game to play at the moment? Is it Old World or is it any of the other ones? I know this is an Old World channel, but you don't have to.
Okay. So I like to think I'm a pretty straightforward and honest about all my takes because I like a little bit of controversy as well. I actually do think Old World is my favorite edition of Warhammer Fantasy, and Warhammer Fantasy is by far and away my favorite miniatures game. The reason I don't even know why so Old World is the first edition of Warhammer Fantasy where I personally like getting my models into combat. I've always been an elf player. You wait, you use your magic, you use your range, you outflank. You don't engage in combat until you outnumber them 3-1. Like you're flanking on three sides. It has been for many of my regular opponents an annoying way to play. Like a lot of people who like this game like to get in there and brawl. So this is the first edition where I really like combat. Well, in 8th edition, it was you lose combat by 27, and it's double ones or break, or let's say stubborn. You're looking for double ones or you break. 7th edition, I felt it was you getting broke by Cav. 6th edition, I felt like it was like, oh, I lost because of fear, it's over. Or 8th edition, I'm happy to put, what's a mediocre infantry? Empire State Troops, they're definitely mediocre. Empire State Troops, I'm happy to throw Empire State Troops against Black Knights or Blood Knights, and they're going to lose combat, probably. But with the dice pool you're rolling so small, there's always a chance. I feel like there's always a chance. And then even if you lose by a whole bunch, I'm still rolling that fallback in good order far more often than not, and now I'm in a different position that we didn't see 2 minutes ago. And you're always your models are just not just wiped off the table right away. You have several chances to roll dice and get back in it, and that's why I love combat. This edition is the first time in what edition is this? This is 9th edition. Technically 10th if I count Armor Price. So in 10 editions, no, that's not fair. I did not play 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. So in 6 editions, this is the first one I really like rolling combat. So I think that's why I like it so much. And I've always loved Magic, and nobody's complaining that Magic is overpowered anymore. So that makes sense.
Definitely. It's a lot more fluid than it used to be. Like I've played in loads of games where it just your line clashes into each other, and then suddenly there's units off every direction. When you do start playing the fullback in order, like getting the right angles and going away, like it's such a fun, fluid game. And like you said about the magic as well, I don't think anything's that crazy. I am going to sit here and moan about illusion magic, but that's about the only one that I care too much about.
So illusion magic, I recently was playing Dwarves and got pretty well shut down by it. So it'll stop you from charging, it'll stop you from moving. It helps them to get the flank, but it's not like 7th edition where I'm saving 6 dice to miscast a purple sun and everybody's dead. Yeah. There's no spells that just kill. Like, can you, if you come off the 8th edition and go to the Old World and look at the nuke spell in the game, the big damaging spell in the game is Fireball. Fire. It is exactly the same as it was in 8th edition. In fact, you'd argue it's worse than it was in 8th edition because it doesn't provide any armor penetration. And Fireball was a terrible spell. You never cast it, and now it's like the big nuke in the edition. So no, that's a very positive change.
I know, it's like even all the higher players are like, yes, I have Hammer Hand on my unit champions.
So nothing. It's when a squad has 5, 10, maybe 14 attacks, and you add 2d3 more, that's a big significant increase. Back in the last edition or 8th edition, you're having 30, 40, 50 attacks with the Heil Spearman sometimes. So it's I'll take 2d3 more.
But that's the thing, they've taken it more down the 6th route. Like, for anyone at home who didn't play 6th edition, Old World is very, very similar to 6th. But then with some kind of like just really nice upgrades into just a much more fluid game. So with your channel, I'm going to try and get back to some of the scripted questions. I'm going to meander back. Where do you see the future of your channel, mate? What more have we got to come?
That's such a hard question to have. Okay, so you got to make me think about the future, right? So, my channel was built off of the classic style handheld camera battery ports, and it's still a question that where are these? Where can I see more of these? I want more of those kind of battery ports. But my channel didn't do much growth in its first, I think it was 4 years, with doing those kind of battery ports. And when I went live, the format that I get almost daily complaints about, this is garbage and I don't want to watch this, when I went to do live battery ports, my channel exploded. Now, to be fair, it also happened a year after that. Was it a year after? 2 years after I started doing live battery ports, Old World drops proper and obviously explode again. But moving to a live format is where I started to make actual money, where now I could use all that profit. I'm still doing a full-time job at Mini Wargaming, making battery ports for them, 40 hours a week. And I was able to take the profit from my channel that I would do in the evenings and just start buying and building more armies and keep on growing. And Old World comes out, audience explodes. The channel is making enough where I can now quit my job at Mini Wargaming and work on Warhammer, the Old World Mountain Miniatures full-time. And then I'm able to bring on the third body, Michael, my operator, who operates and edits for me. So every time I see an increase, I just throw it back in the channel where extra people hired, more models, more armies. Or now I'm at the point where I have yesterday a box showed up my door of some Heils I ordered to augment my Heil for me, some more chariots. Nice. Once I get those done, I have nothing left to buy. I have everything for every army, except for demons. I haven't really worked on demons yet. And I fully expect when the Beastman Arcane Journal drops to have to buy some Beastmen. Maybe I need more of Unit X for an Arcane Journal Army of Infamy. And then when the Woodalls, I think I'll expect it to happen again. And then we're going to start to see new armies, and that's when I'll have to start expanding that way. But as it stands right now, I have 1 or 2 of every unit for every army. So there's no more, there's no thing to spend more that way. I don't need another body in the studios right now. So if we have another financial growth, I'm not sure which way it goes yet. So that I don't know. I know that doing 2 Warhammer the Old World live battle port streams a week is doing very well for me. And so I've been, with my audience, I was trying to explain, like, every dime that comes in, I put it back in the channel. I didn't go buy a new truck. I didn't do some major house renovations. I always put everything back in the channel. And now I'm at the point where there's nothing left to do. So I think the next step is hiring, the next marker is hiring another employee or more employees. So that's where we're at for the channel. But as to where it goes, I'm a battle report channel. The only thing I could do is record more battle reports and or more streams, and I think there'll be just diminishing returns. So I don't believe there's any more any reason to bring more streams on. So yeah, I don't know. You're asking this question at a rough time because I don't know right now. You asked me that question a year ago. I have goals. I want new cameras on behind each player on tracks. I got that. I wanted a third body in the room to operate. I got that. I've hit every goal, and now I'm like, I don't know where to go now. So no, don't ask me that question.
You know what? You answered that really interestingly as well, because it's basically you've just achieved all of your goals that you were setting out. So realistically, you don't really need to reach anymore. If you've reached the point where you wanted to get to, and you've got to a really comfortable level with the channel, then that's just perfect. I'm really happy for you, man. I'm really happy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, there is one thing I really enjoy painting, so I never want to be done painting completely. But I kind of do have this goal where I do have two other guys. I have two guys that they don't work full time, but they're always painting for me. I always have a project on the go. I think maybe a painter, a full time painter, would be the next actual step, because if I can take some of the painting work out of my hands, I can make more videos. Like I do the series where I just reviewed all the armies 1 year later. Those. Everything I do is super easy to do, but everything takes time. I got to click, I got to drag, and just more time to make those type of videos. So yeah, I guess we're gonna expand the workforce and make more videos, but not more battle report videos. Is the future of this channel. I think I'm kind of realizing as I'm talking right now.
Well, at least this was forced you to think about it. So
yeah. Oh, my dude, that's all I do is think about it all day, every day.
Love it. So you talk about that you need a painter. So what have you been painting this week then? Because I know we spoke earlier in the week and you've been painting loads.
Okay, so that's hilarious. I just did a 1 year later review on the Empire, and the last one of those videos I put out was almost 2 months ago. So I said at the very beginning of the video, hey, I haven't put out one of these videos in 2 months because in the last 2 months, this is what I painted. So I actually have it very fresh for the last 2 months, not necessarily the last week. So in the last 2 months, I painted 2,000 points of Empire Knights Panther. I painted 28 High Elf Swordmasters, 2 units of 28 Sea Guard, several characters. Now I'm blanking. Yes, what did I paint yesterday?
Madness.
Oh, I just finished painting. This was done 4 days ago. No, wait, this was done last Wednesday, so I guess it's 5 days ago. I just finished painting 32 Empire Militia and 20 Empire Archers. And that finished off my Empire. My Empire's done. There's nothing more to paint for my Empire.
That's ridiculous. Like, I'm literally struggling to paint up like 40 Longbeards at the moment. I'm just like halfway through, like,
So, my painting growth is heavily influenced by the fact that I pretty much live as a content producer. So years ago, working at Mini Wargaming, I had if anybody used to remember the old Mini Wargaming videos, it was Chris who used to make quick tips. He was the painter over there. I have him behind me, literally like the one office behind me, who would always like be able to show me things and show me how to cut corners. But always having a deadline of a new model comes out, a new unit comes out, this has to get done by a certain date. Over the years, I learned how to cut corners where everything looks fine on camera, and that's all I need these days. Just you don't gotta paint the under part of the bottle. It can be full primer or black in the bottom, stuff like that. Just everything's about cutting corners. If anybody comes in and looks at my stuff, you go, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine. You're not winning no competitions. I'm aware. I'm okay with that. I'm a battery report painter.
Yeah, it was the phrase, isn't it? The 4 foot fabulous. Like, you look at it from 4 feet away, you're like, that looks amazing. Don't look at it closely, though.
Don't come any closer, please. Well, ever since I started doing like camera shots of my units, I have like a catalog of them so I can like splice them into editing afterwards, make my life a little easier. Yeah, I personally see a lot of close-ups now. I'm like, I don't like looking at them.
So I've got a really funny story about this kind of painting. So I was at a Warhammer World Tournament when Age of Sigmar was a thing. So I took my Slaanesh army, so Slaanesh demons. So I had a couple of Keepers of Secrets. And basically the people running the event come over and were like, oh, can we put it in the cabinet for the painting? Like, we really like them. And I'm there like, okay, yeah, no worries. So they put them up in there. And I was walking around at lunch when they were doing the voting, and I was stood there with the event organizer who was going to pick the best painted, and he was like, yeah, these keepers would be really good if he'd have finished painting them. Because I said, like, they look good from a distance, but I hadn't painted like any of the little jewels or anything.
That's fair. It's a fair statement. I actually do believe there are no bad paint jobs that, like, unless if you throw your paint on very thick, you're kind of screwed. But if your paint is relatively thin, it doesn't matter how bad it is. You can take a model from 20 years ago and just put more paint on it, and you can make an ugly model beautiful. So my models aren't bad; they're just not finished.
Exactly. To be fair, like, as long as it's got a bit of paint on, it doesn't matter anyway. Like, I'd much prefer to play against somebody who's even just thrown a load of contrast on, not really cared too much, rather than a grey army, for sure.
I am stupidly lucky in that regard, where I don't think I've ever really played a game against an unpainted army, because in the last 10 years, all my games are on battle reports, whether my channel or Mini Wargaming, and everything has to come in painted. So I have a a good 10-year run of very lucky. I only play against fully painted and based armies, which is I don't even know what it's like on the other side.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. It's
Yeah.
one when you're playing against like just bases as well. So like, people haven't even made the models yet, so they're just like, right, this base is a dragon, which is
I've
fine.
never had to
Like,
do that.
have you never had that? Like, I
Never.
get that quite a bit actually.
No, I don't. I think it would break me. I don't think I can handle it.
You're like, which way round is it?
I every now and then I'll walk by like the kids playing upstairs, and they got gray plastic. It's not even primed. And I'm like, my mind immediately goes, oh, they're just like doing some hobbying or whatever. I'm like, oh no, they're playing a game. It's just so alien to me to see people play with unpainted miniatures. It's insane. I know I'm lucky. I know it's just a super unique hobby experience or gaming experience. I'm aware.
No, that is really lucky actually. I did quite recently. My mate Matt, we played some games, and he just hadn't got around to making the new High Elf chariots yet. The bird, what are they called? What are the bird ones called?
Sky Cutters.
Yeah, so he hasn't got around to building the Sky Cutters yet. So there was just like a couple of random chariot bases just flying around the board.
I wouldn't be able to keep track. There's no chance.
It's all right. He's making them now, so it's fine. Right. So, what is your favorite model that you've painted to date, mate?
I think it's we already talked about it, is that gyrocopter from when I was like 10, 12 or 13. Yeah.
So that's still your favorite one?
Yeah. There have been I have painted so many miniatures over the years. It all blends together, but yeah, no, I literally can't remember the last. Like, I enjoy painting. I love doing it. I'll never be able to stop painting. But I can't remember painting a miniature recently and going like, I really, really like this, or I'm really happy with this, because everything is about I have to get this done. Everything I paint is work. So yeah, I remember. I still remember the pride I felt finishing that gyrocopter. His hair was blonde. He had a ruby cheek, or ruddy cheeks, and the wood of the gyrocopter was painted red and blue, just like out of the book. So because back then everything was red, yellow, and blue, right? I had metallics, and they had the metallics on the skis and on the bombs. Yeah, no, I actually remember the pride. That model is still the one I think about as the thing I painted.
Ah, that's amazing. I've got very similar. Mine's like, the little dwarf lord that's kind of stood there like this.
I love that model so much.
Yeah,
I love that model so much.
Actually.
There's two of them. The one with the winged helm or the one with the no helm? That one.
So
I have that one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's going to
one.
go. Yeah, so I painted that. I think I must have been like 12, 13. And that's it's my just favourite paint job I've ever painted on anything. And it's probably the most proud I've ever been. So I know the feeling.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, too, how old are you? You said you're 13 you painted it? I bet you,
Yes.
like, I've been painting for now, let's say, 30 years. Probably even more. I've been painting for 30 years, and I'm never, ever going to win even a local painting competition. But I could go back in time 30 years and be a heavy metal painter.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazy. When you look at the old white dwarfs, when you're looking at them, and you're like, I could have won the Slayer sword.
It's so true. You see how things evolved? Well, okay, airbrush has changed a lot. So there is another model I actually am very proud of. I've done relatively recently. It's a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I painted my 40K Lionel Johnson. But most of it was painted with my airbrush, and I've gotten, which is weird to say because it's an infantry character, I've gotten pretty accurate with my airbrush where I could now use it to paint much of a model without getting overspray. And I felt pride in that because it took me like a couple of hours to do a whole Primarch model instead of if you do by brush. So yeah, all my pride moments are like something got done or something I got done real fast.
Yeah, I always think it's quite crazy. When you finish a model and you've like tried a new technique, like some wet blending, or you get like a really nice fade that you didn't know you could do with an airbrush, and you're kind of looking at it and you're like, I don't actually believe that I did this. It looks like someone else has done this.
It's like, oh, hey, I finally learned how to do that technique. Or I find a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I find I personally don't evolve my techniques much over the years. Like I talk about this often actually, I love sitting at a table and painting with other people at the same time, because I use the same example over and over again, because you look over the guy on your left and you watch him paint his leather pouch. I'm like, oh, that's a very interesting way of painting a leather pouch. I've been painting leather this one way for 30 years. Like I decide this is how I do leather. I don't try a new technique, and like his was simpler and it looked better. I just don't evolve. I know how to do leather pouches. That's done. I know how to do Dark Angel's green Space Marine armor. That's done. I know how to do blonde hair and an elf. That's done. There might be a better way, but I already have my way. That's why I like painting with other people and seeing the way they do things.
I've also got a lot lazier with painting. Since contrast has become a thing, I have got so lazy with all of my paint jobs. Because anything that I can get away with just doing with contrast and then highlighting, that's just what happens.
I love contrast. I love it so much. It
Oh,
doesn't
it's so
really work
good.
with 40k, but yeah, in my opinion.
No, I mean like Vespids and stuff.
Yeah, well, organic things.
Yeah.
Smooth
100%.
panels, it can work, but I almost find that while it can work, and there are some very talented YouTubers that are doing like large, even tanks with contrast. That's taking them a long time, and I ain't got time for that, and I don't have the skill for that either.
Yeah, no, I've got no idea how they do that. I can imagine through airbrush might be fine. Like I quite like I like some contrast with the airbrush. Like that's really really good. Yeah, no, I don't think I could paint anything really big and smooth with it. I don't think.
I try to use the airbrush as absolutely much as possible. So if I do a big monster, whether it's a chimera, a giant spawn, even a dragon, for sure, 90% of the work is going to be airbrush, and then like teeth and detail pickouts. But when I do infantry for Old World these days, I try to, like, most recently I did like Empire Archers. I prime them black. I use the airbrush to paint like brown leather on all their clothing. And then I take that miniature to the table and I paint like the pants, the boots, the skin. Like try to do airbrush with one color on as much as possible. And then I did like the Empire Militia, the Scott of 32. So I took 8 of them, painted them all black. I took 8 of them and painted all their clothing like a dark gray. Took another 8 of them a dark brown leather. Another 8 of them with airbrush. And you take those and just pick out quick details, and it looks like you did a lot of work. Where you couldn't get away with that with contrast, but. Anytime I'll do like a Beastman, I'll only use contrast. Like when I do a Beastman, I'll prime it gray. Zenithal Rattlecam prime it again with gray sear, and then just use contrast. You don't even have to highlight, but you can. But with that method, like it's like the slap chop method that people start using the phrase. I don't like that method because I find it too chalky, too much texture. But if I multiple prime with Rattlecams, it's smooth. And that's why I just use my contrast. I'll do a Beastman Beastlord in like 15 seconds because contrast over that Zenithal Prime is perfect.
So the Beastmen are basically built for that. There's another way that you can do that actually. So it's kind of like to create a little bit more depth. So you spray it white and then you just put a load of Nuln oil on it and then put the contrast over the top. So you kind of get like a little bit of like a dulled down effect in it. So but without the chalkiness from the dry brush.
Yeah, so dry brushing is the technique that everybody learns how to do, but with 30 years of painting, I feel like I've personally never been able to master dry brushing. It's a technique I try to do as little as possible in any of my miniatures.
I dry brush probably on all of my dwarves I paint, but only right at the beginning. So like I spray all of them black and then I dry brush the entire model silver and then I work up from that. But that's pretty much about as far as my dry brushing skills go.
I do that in all my Iron Warriors for Horus Heresy or 40k, where I do silver and dry brush and then paint afterwards. But like I remember dry brushing an army with it was like a Dark Angel Space Marine Deathwing Knight thing. They were just so chalky that I've never been able to shake that. I can't dry brush anymore. Like even a dwarf, I'd rather this is dumb to say, but I'd rather take the time and go with a really thin brush and highlight the whiskers manually than to dry brush it, because I feel like it's too chalky. I hit the wrong spot. The paint's too thick or it's too thin, and I'm trying to fix it, and I'd rather just take the time and do it one at a time. That's my kryptonite, dry brushing. I just can't do it right.
Yeah, like some people are amazing at it though, right? Like I've got a mate, Tom, who just kind of just dry brushes everything and it looks amazing. It looks like he's wet blended it. I dry brush something and it just looks like I've dragged it across a chalkboard. It's horrible. I painted a 40k Magnus and it was back when I just discovered that I could dry brush stuff. And yeah, it looks horrible.
I don't get it. I recently, so there was a guest over at Mini Wargaming, it was last week or the week before, and he was showing me his miniatures. I'm asking how I painted it, and he's like, oh, I just primed it black and I dry brushed it repeatedly with various colors. I'm like, there's no way. Like I couldn't. Like it looks blended nice. There's no texture. It looks like you painted it very well. There's no way I could do this. You think I lied to me? I'm calling him a liar.
Yeah, just airbrush.
Yeah, I think he used an airbrush. You say you dry brushed it.
Right, we kind of meandered away from the the main conversation. So, what are you? I knew this was going to happen. What... Did exactly the same on your video as well.
Yep, we got.
So, what are you looking forward to next in the old world? Is it new armies coming out, or are you looking forward to some kind of like changes in rules? What are you looking forward to?
Oh man, I don't. Oh my god, this is gonna sound like I don't care, and I do. But I kind of want to say I don't care, because it's a year and a bit, and I'm happy to play with the rules we have and play open battle again. But if they come up with a pack that changes all the point costs, I'm excited for that. If they put them up with just new missions and we have to go score objectives, and I'm excited to see how that goes. If it's whole new armies, that's also awesome. The only thing I don't want is them to drop 2 armies at once, which historically they've never done. But if we get if they all of a sudden decide a year later is long enough to put out the next edition, second edition drops and they come up with a 2-player starter set and it's Kislev and Cathay, that's going to be overwhelming. That's the only thing I don't want. But thankfully, that's not going to happen. But it still haunts me. No, I'm down for anything.
Oh, can you imagine if they did bring 2 of them out at once? That'd be like mind blown, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, see, I have to give one of them to one of my painters, and I want to do both of them myself. Deadlines.
Panda Cav.
We got to get things out on time for release dates and stuff, and it's the deadlines. While help me get everything done is the one bit of stressor in my life, and I guess if that's the worst thing in my life, I can't complain. But yeah, no. What is there something I really want? I don't know.
I'm guessing you already answered that with Cathay, right?
I really want new armies.
Yeah.
But will they look like they fit in the universe currently? Because if you look like the Bretonnian Royal Pegasus, they're kind of fine. But like the Bretonnian Foot Knights, I have them right here actually. The Knights on Foot, they're different scale. They have a different overall. They feel more like Age of Sigmar models or modern models than they do old world models. So I'm assuming when we get Cathay, they're going to be slightly bigger. Like the regular man in that army will be slightly bigger than what we have in the Empire. Yeah, I don't know. That's the one thing. Will it look like it fits with the rest of them, or will it look like a third party army sitting with my old world armies?
Yeah, which would be quite strange. It's going to be really interesting to see. I really hope that they're going to do a good job of them, right? Games Workshop models are the best models on the market. They're going to look stunning. And we also know exactly what everything looks like from Total War. So I can't imagine they're not going to be stunning. I don't know. Like, do you think at some point down the line, if Old World does start to get really good, does get put into one of the main games like Horus Heresy did, maybe we'll get new lines for everything and everything will turn plastic like they did with Horus Heresy? Maybe, I don't know.
I think that's a foregone conclusion. Actually, I think it's gonna happen for sure. I think even stuff like keep in mind, I'm gonna start saying things that's in my head. I have no inside information. I do not know anything I'm about to say, but like I can see stuff like Lizardmen coming back as maybe like the Southland Lizards. Like, they're Lizardmen, but they're a slightly different army. Or maybe Vampire Counts don't come back in the form that we know them as. They come back as the Vampire Coast or something from Total War or whatever. But
that would be sick.
All these things I think are on the table. But at the same time, I mean, if they need more time to design and produce these miniatures, they could put out more arcane journals if they wanted to, and like you can take Vampire bits and Bretonnian bits and put an arcane journal for Mussolini. You can take I'm sure there's a dozen things you can do to make more sub factions, because like I have a massive Orc and Goblin army. I enjoy playing them, but I play Nomadic Wa or Troll Horde. It feels like 2 brand new complete armies. They could keep doing that if they want to buy themselves time, and that would make me happy as well. If we got just one new character or unit every time when these arcane journals or whatever they're going to call them in the future drop, I'm happy with that too. It doesn't all have to be at once, but I am excited for whole new armies.
Yeah, no, I am as well. Although I think from a more competitive player than a casual, for me it's all of the new questions that are going to get asked. Like, how do you build something to beat this? How do you build something to beat that? If there is Cathay and Kislev coming at the same time, how do you build an army that beats both of them and all of the armies? So there's going to be a lot more questions asked, and that's only really healthy for the game.
Oh, well, for guys like me and you, that's just tons of free content.
As well, yeah. And especially considering we'll all get it wrong as soon as the book drops, and then 6 months later you can be like, well, actually,
that's double the content.
Yeah.
So do you think for your little world, the competitive world, I didn't mean to say it that way, but the competitive world,
it's fine.
That's not how I meant to say it. If a new let's say Kislev comes out next month. It's not coming out next month, everybody. Let's say Kislev or Cathay comes out next month. Do you expect to see most armies becoming Cathay? Do you think a lot of people jump over, or do you think they make a little splash?
I think it'll be the same as the people who play Bretonnia and Tomb Kings, right? So there's a lot of people that just play them because they were the first big armies to come out. Those were the most easy accessible ones, and also with some of the newer models, right? So you got like the new dragon, you got like the new.
I mean, has nothing to do with the oppressed and overpowered of the mortuary cult or the Royal Pegasus, right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't know this at the beginning, right? Yeah. Like at the beginning, we didn't know this, but they were the first ones to come out, so everybody bought them, so everyone had a set. And I think that will be kind of similar with Cathay, because everybody's going to want them. Like, I'll probably buy a box just to put it up behind me, to be honest. And I can imagine everyone's going to go out and buy a box of Cathay. Doesn't mean I don't think everyone's going to play Cathay, because you've got a lot of people like myself who do just stick to one faction. Actually, it's kind of a little. Yeah, it's a little bit weird in the old worlds and in fantasy compared to like Age of Sigmar and 40k. I think Heresy has it a little bit potentially. I mean, there are some 40k people that just stick with the one army, right? But in old world, you get a lot of people that are just like, I'm an Empire player.
Yep, it's very true.
Like,
it's very true.
And like they'll probably buy the Cathay stuff, but I can't see them playing them at events. I mean, they might be absolutely broken, and then you'll see a lot more of them for sure. But I think if they come out and they're relatively balanced, I don't think they'll explode all over the scene, but I can imagine we will definitely see a few of them for sure.
Fair. Do you think we're going to get a balanced data sheet, or whatever you want to call it, for the old world? Do you think it's in our pipeline? You think it's needed? Two questions.
I personally don't think it's needed. Like, I play a lot of tournaments. I play a load of tournament games, and yeah, cool, the rules aren't perfect, but I don't think the rules need to be perfect. And especially for I'm quite blessed to go to all these events, but I'm only like the 1% of people that do. 99% of people who play Old World don't go to loads of events. They just play with their mates. For everybody playing at home, you don't need a balance sheet. You can just decide with your local gaming group, or you can decide with your mates. If you think that this rule is balked, you just change it, right? There's that old Rick Priestley quote, wasn't there? That you can just, the rules are there as guidelines. Obviously, this is a competitive channel, but if there's something you really don't like, you don't have to play it, surely.
I think it's weirdly, in my opinion, it's almost the exact opposite of what you said. For guys like me and you, we play so often that I can, honestly, if I had the power to tone down Mortuary Cult, I wouldn't even do it. I don't care. I'll make jokes about it. It's something I can pick on. But like, what's that Game of Thrones phrase? The wheel is to keep on turning. Like, the next edition will come out and they're going to be crap, and something else will be the top tier. And we're going to have to deal with that, and then it'll change again. Like, it's constantly changing. I play so much that it doesn't really affect me. It's more of the group of, maybe it's just two guys where they rarely play. I think the balanced data slates are needed for them, not the guys like me and you who play constantly. I think guys like me and you, if there would, so if Mortuary Cult was as bad as we say it is online, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to defend it because we know it's a thing, but if it was so crazy, we would have already as a community toned it down for competitive events. It hasn't been necessary yet. But I, in my experience from talking to people from literally all over the world, when they come into mini wargaming to play games, is like, the smaller the group, the less likely they are to do house rules and change things, I find. So if one guy's Mortuary Cult is like, we're not gonna play anymore, his army's too powerful, and then they come back next edition, is an explanation I get quite often. Like, I have a couple of buddies that are a prime example of this. They'll play Heresy, 40k, Age of Sigmar, and they only have one or two armies per game system, usually just one. And if one of them has an army that's too powerful or is over-tuned, they just stop playing that game system and go to a different game system, and then the next edition will come out, they'll come back to their armies.
Oh, so that's a real shame. I think they just need to have the conversation with their mate to not be a dick.
See, that is such a subjective. These are these are really nice guys. It's not like they're neither one of them is that guy. But I think that's a hard conversation because everybody has a different opinion of what's the thing, right?
Yeah, so obviously we spoke about this last week, and it's the different expectations for games. It's like I could say to you, I want a casual game, and you go, well, my casual army is 3 dragons.
Yeah.
Or just anything crazy. Or you could bring, like, the 180 blob of skeletons in the royal host. Like, that could be your idea of a fluffy army, because it is fluffy, right?
Yeah.
So it's different levels of expectations when you play these games. And I don't know, it's just worth a chat before games, just so it doesn't ruin the game for everyone, I think, potentially. Like, I'm not too fussed on any army being too strong. I quite like where the army that I play is. So I think we're kind of like middle of the road. Like, we can win events, but we can also get absolutely smashed out. But I really like the challenge of playing into those harder armies. Like, I won't sit there and moan about an army being too strong. I'll try and work out a way how to play into it. I mean, you might be hitting your head against a brick wall for a couple of months, but you work it out eventually, right?
I think, yeah, every army can play this edition. Now, I'm not talking about competitive play because I have very little, almost no experience with that. But every army can play the game quite well, and every army, even the armies that are considered super top tier, like Bretonia, Tomb Kings, Vampire Counts, who else is up there? Anyway, all these armies can play way down too. They can make Lisser are going to get smashed, absolutely, which is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone does forget like the player skill in that as well. Like
100%. Oh my god, 100%.
Yeah, so you can have a Mortuary Cult player that's absolutely smashing it. Like, he's going to be a good player, or they are going to be a good player. You can't just pick up an insanely strong army and just beat everyone. You need to be a good player for that too.
If your gaming group is 20 people and the one Empire player is crushing everybody all the time, yeah, there's evidence that Empire might be overpowered, but there's as much evidence that guy's just better than you. So let's stop saying the army's overpowered all the time. That guy might be just better than you. And honestly, maybe you're just bad. Some of us are bad.
And on that note, we shall end this episode. You're terrible at the game.
I'm terrible with some armies, okay? Sometimes you have to find your playstyle and the army doesn't line up with it.
That's going to be the opening thumbnail to this video. You're shit at the game.
I'm already too arrogant online. You can't make it worse.
Oh, I love it. Right. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. I basically haven't asked any of the questions I was going to really. I got kind of prepared. So I'll have to get you back on again. Thank you very much, mate.